Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Neutral Zone for the first episode of the season. I'm women's ice hockey beat reporter Anthony Rossi, joined alongside Christina Jimenez, and we are here to preview two big top 10 matchups for the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team as they first take on the Clarkson Golden Knights and then take on the St. Lawrence Saints. We're here to preview the matchup, talk about last year, and talk about some key players to look out for. The Bobcats are playing Clarkson up first on Friday, so Christina, what do you got?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Bobcats lost to Clarkson. Clarkson swept the Bobcats last year. The first game that they lost was in Potsdam. It was a 3-1 loss. Maya Labad was the only player on the Bobcats who scored a goal in that loss. And then they suffered another overtime loss in Hamden. Haley Wynn scored a goal in the second period for Clarkson, and then Kaylin LaMarche fired back a few minutes later. Then with about 25 seconds left remaining in overtime, Nicole Gosling scored the overtime winner.
Yeah, that was definitely a heartbreaker for the Bobcats. That was their senior night too. So with all of the people that left, that's just a stake to the heart, and it hurt the team. Nicole Gosling's back this year. But talking about St. Lawrence now, you look at that team from last year. They did not lose anybody. The only player that they did really lose that was a key contributor was Julia Gosling, who is Nicole's sister. The Saints last year really were dominated by the top two pairing of Abby Hustler, Gosling. Anna Seghetti was a really good player as well. Hustler had 55 points last year. She was one of the nominees for Player of the Year in the ECAC. Julia Gosling as well was a very good player. Like I mentioned, 51 points. Seghetti had 39, and then May Batherson, who's another really good player for St. Lawrence, finished the season with 37 points as a defenseman, which is pretty solid. But taking a look at the St. Lawrence series from last year, the Bobcats didn't really do too well as they also got swept by the Saints. They lost their first game in St. Lawrence 4-1 earlier in the year. And then again, right before that Clarkson game, they lost in overtime to St. Lawrence 4-3. That was another stake to the heart as it just was back-to-back overtime losses. First the St. Lawrence one, and then you have senior night. You look to rebound against Clarkson, and you just can't do so. So taking a look now at this Clarkson team from this year, who is the key player to look out for Clarkson?
I'd say the key player to look out for in Clarkson right now is Haley Wynn. She just got ECAC Defender of the Month, and she's their highest scoring player with 4 goals and 11 assists in 8 games so far. Another key player to look out for is the goaltender Holly Gruber. With Michelle Pasechnik gone from last year, she's picked up a lot of the slack. She's started in 4 games and only let up 5 goals against with 58 saves so far.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough act to follow for Gruber as Michelle Pasechnik was the NCAA Goalie of the Year last year. So it's definitely some tough shoes to fill. There's no shoes to fill in the St. Lawrence goaltending room, and that's Emma Sophie Nordstrom. And in her first season, she didn't really play a lot of games. She only played in 5 games, only starting in 1, getting credited with 1 loss. But her sophomore season last year, she saw a lot more time, playing in 36 games, recording a 2.03 goals against average and a .931 save percentage, winning 25 games last year, recording 7 shutouts. And it's really the same story this year. Better numbers too, a 1.37 goals against average this season with a .948 save percentage, 5 wins this year, 2 shutout wins. It's really looking like it's the same team for St. Lawrence minus Julia Gosling, as Abby Hustler is doing really well as well. And St. Lawrence and Clarkson will prove really worthy opponents for the Bobcats. This will really be the identifying games for the Bobcats for the rest of the season. Now looking on their side, though, we've talked about their opponents. Now we got to look at their team as a whole, because right now they're ranked 11th in the country. So now going into this weekend of games, it's an underdog scenario for the Bobcats for the first time against both of these teams in one weekend. Who is a key contributor for the Bobcats that you see stepping up this weekend?
I think Maya Labad really has to continue the way that she's been playing for the Bobcats. She's been really reliable so far, and they're really going to rely on her during this weekend. She had a hat trick versus Syracuse a couple weekends ago, and she's been the highest scoring player on the Bobcats this year with 8 goals and 2 assists so far on the season.
Yeah, another player who needs to continue playing like she has been is Kaylin LaMarche, Maddie Samoskevich. Those 2 players are going to be key factors this weekend. Another big big question this weekend is the goaltending. Do you start Kaylee Doyle, the reliable goaltender who knows the ECAC very well, or do you start the freshman phenom Felicia Frank? Frank has got 2 shutout wins to her name, and she played Yale very well, a Yale team that is now ranked number 14 in the country. Kaylee Doyle, just off of an overtime loss to Brown, there's nothing that she really could have done on that overtime goal from Brown. It was just a really solid play from the Brown attackers going cross crease to a place that she couldn't get to. But both goaltenders are very reliable this weekend. I'm interested to see who you think Cass Turner should go with this weekend.
I think Cass Turner has to stick with Kaylee Doyle this weekend. I mean, she has a lot more experience than Felicia Frank. Felicia Frank really has been performing very well so far, but I think these teams are ranked very highly, and Cass Turner is going to need to start Kaylee Doyle.
No, I agree with you. I think Kaylee Doyle is probably going to be the starter this weekend. It would not surprise me if Frank came in if Doyle is struggling in the posts. Well, that's all the time that we have for the Neutral Zone. It was a great first episode to start the year. The Bobcats with these 2 big top 10 matchups this weekend. You can catch all the action on our X account at Q30 Sports. For Christina Semenes, I'm Anthony Rossi, and we've been reporting for Q30 Sports.